Thank you all. My name is Matt Houston. I am honored to serve as chair of the Economic Development Committee of the African American Leadership Institute. Can y'all hear me? Is this fading in and out? We should be good. This is really just for the cameras. It's definitely not this for the cameras. It's got the audio. Today we're having our third installment of our EcoDev series entitled The Economics of Freedom. Before we get started officially, and before I do my slide deck, I want to first thank you all for attending, not just today, but in April, when we had Courtney Johnson-Rose from Houston discuss the importance of building real estate within our communities and how we can create strategies to use existing infrastructures to be able to build within our communities. In May, when we had a panel of developers who's investing in our city, from representatives from Hope Global to our community-based developers, Terrence Maiden, who brought his representative, who is from Dallas, from Russell Glenn, right? And he is investing in this area, not only at Rivulet, but at Redbird and others, but also contractors, builders who are building single-family homes at a successful clip to be able to build our community organically. You also had young developers like Maggie Parker, who is skilled as an urban planner and who has the skill set in the finance space to build systems to scale and repeat in our communities. We have the people, we have the opportunity in real estate and ownership, especially in Southern Dallas and beyond, but there's still some missing piece. And so for discussion in August, this is Black Business Month, I think it's really important for economic development professionals in our area to sit down and have a discussion to understand what exactly is economics and freedom in regards to our community. So that's what the next hour and a half will be. I would like to have the visionary of the African American Leadership Institute make several remarks. One, because he is very busy, but two, you are doing a lot of work not only in the marketplace as an attorney, but also legislatively as our state senator representing District 23, this area, and have been a champion for legislation to create economic opportunities here. So I would love for you to make remarks, Senator Royce West.
Man, thank you very much. And I want to say good morning to each and every one of you. This is my second series. That was one where we had our distinguished guests from Houston, Texas, which was out of Cedar Valley at the time. And I appreciate everyone. I know most of you, and I see some new faces also. Again, my name is Royce West. The amazing thing about where we are today, I kind of grew up right across the street. Okay, when this was Bishop College, and I attended Wilmer Hutchins High School. I graduated from Wilmer Hutchins High School. I can recall when there was a 7-Eleven right here off of Bishop's campus, and my job was to work there as a grocery boy. And I've always been kind of tall, so people thought I actually attended Bishop College. People thought I attended Bishop. But I mean, I kind of look back and I think about from whence I come and where I am today. I hadn't gone too far. I'm still in this community more often than not, wanting to make certain that we do in fact develop this community, that people of color get that particular opportunity. I recall when I first became a state senator, I wanted to work with Paul Quinn at that time and to make this a state university. Take the resources here and give them to the state and then build upon that. But the church didn't want to do that, which is fine. We want to make sure it maintained a private college, and I'm glad we did, because we now have Paul Quinn and the leadership of Mike Sorrell and his staff. And then right down the street, we have UNC Dallas. I'm going to tell you about a young man that played basketball. I was pretty good at basketball, too. I had that shot. I digress. Okay. But we used to go to the Beckley Center Recreation Center and play basketball. And the route that we would take would be go straight down Simpson Stewart and then go through Oak Cliff and go there. And oftentimes, I would just be at the corner of Lancaster and Simpson Stewart. I said, man, look at all that land over there. Look at all that land. We need to develop that land. We need to make certain that we have businesses and things like over there. And the land I'm talking about is that land the southwest corner right there, where we now have Catherine Gilliam. We now have UNT Dallas. And there's going to be so much more that's going to be generated right there in that particular area. What I see, and I may not live to see all this, and that's fine, because you don't want to live to see your vision, frankly, be fulfilled. It should be in perpetuity. I'm going to try to talk the state into, the state leases a lot of space across the state of Texas. And it would seem to me that it would make sense that we have a state building over there where we can bring some of those leases into that particular building. What's the benefit of that? The benefit's this. With the police academy going over there, we've had a state building that had different types of resources, offices in it. You can understand what that means. To me, what it means is that we'll be seeing more and more people frequent that area, which also means that there are more business opportunities. You know what? We got a police station right there. Why don't we have a donut shop right next to the police station? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Economic development. We got a lot of police officers there. Maggie's doing her development there. Hogue is doing his development over there. So you see, there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of things that are going on. The Maiden brothers are doing their development there. And before you know it, we're going to have a lot of people, more people frequent that area. As I'm telling you now, for any realtors here, I'm going to buy some of those houses over in Singing Hills. Okay, right? Senator, why do you want to do this? I mean, the reality is that some of that's going to be student housing, right? I remember being on college campus and everybody wanted to be off college campus and they go try to get a house to rent out. So that's going to be some rental housing over there. Obviously, we want to maintain the historical significance of Singing Hills, but the reality is some of it's going to be student housing. When I kind of look at what we're doing here in the state of Texas, today is a very significant day because it's the anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act. Okay? And, you know, we're always talking about civil rights. Well, the Voting Rights Act gave us what our civil rights. And it was signed by a Texan, LBJ. And the reality is that the right wing, the mega boys, they put their Supreme Court in place. That Supreme Court has just gotten eviscerated the Voting Rights Act. And so the question is, what will we do? What will we do? Will we sit on our laurels and do nothing? That's not an option at all. Charles and I was talking a few minutes ago. Had those persons that have come before us did that, then we would not be experiencing some of the opportunities that we're experiencing today. What do you mean, Senator? Yes, I know. I'm talking about race, okay? But I'm not one of those people. I want to talk about race, okay? I also want to talk about empowerment. I want you to think about this. Here in Dallas County, it's beginning in other urban counties. It's getting that way in Tarrant County. We have business opportunities with governments. As long as we have the ability to elect people to our city council, county commissioners court, our school boards, we should be able to have people that are sensitive to making certain that minority small businesses get an opportunity to participate, right? And so again, business is politics. Politics is business. As long as we can maintain power, the way we maintain that power is through the ballot. So you see, the city, the school districts, think about what their budgets are. And I know probably about 80% is that of personnel. Just think about what their budgets are. Think about what their bonding capacity is. And if we can replicate that at the state level, which we can, then race may not be as big a factor as it has been if we can make certain that we build those coalitions that have the same interests that we have and continue to have business opportunities. I'm preaching to the choir, but I wanted to make certain I came back here today and say thank you, Matt. Thank you, Maurice, for continuing our effort. I know we're going to be together again next month, our 10th annual summit, September 12th, and we want to make sure each and every one of you are there. You will, in fact, be, I guess you could say, you're going to be surprised at some of the things we're going to be doing, but it's going to be another gathering of the people here in the Metroplex that understand and appreciate that we've got to work together in order to get things done. Before I sit down, let me say this. There is a project called Freedom Rising 2026. FreedomRising2026.org. And what that is that on June 29th in Houston, Texas, about 55 organizations, Greek organizations, civil rights organizations, professional organizations, elected officials came together to talk about what we're going to be doing during this election cycle. The statistics came out concerning African American participation. We know that at the last midterm election, out of 1.3 million African American voters, what percent do you think actually voted? 35%. Okay. Last general election, what percent? 55%. That's still not good. Now, how many African Americans do you think are not registered to vote? Well, within the particular age range, there's over 2 million African Americans that are age eligible to vote, but not registered to vote. Over 2 million. Can you imagine if we flex our muscle, what we'd be able to do? So, Freedom Rising 2026, if you hadn't heard about it yet, you will. Okay? We started back in June, the end of June, frankly, first part of July, putting it together. So we're putting together the infrastructure right now. It's not just going to be a one-off. It's going to be a movement that we're going to put in place to make certain that we have dedicated staff dealing with issues alongside the NAACP and other urban league organizations like that on a continuous basis. Business issues on a continuous basis. So I want you to, again, look at freedomrising2026.org, and you'll begin to see the creation of an organization that's reflective of us working together and not working harder, but working smarter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your work. And thank you for giving us this opportunity through AALI so that we can build community through economic development. The next person I want to introduce you to is the Executive Director of AALI, Mr. Maurice West. He is also our host this afternoon, well, this morning still. As for our third part, we've utilized the academic institution within our area, within the education corridor. It's an area designated by the city of Dallas over 20 years ago for intentional development for city citizens, so that if we are able to have an educated citizenry, we can attract workforce or provide economic development opportunities. And so by investing in that, not just getting degrees or going to class, but also providing programs that can enrich the community is how we can lift up our community in the education space. And Maurice West is an architect of that. I would like him to make quick remarks and allow us to congratulate him on his new decision that he's made. Go ahead, Mr. Maurice West.
Can't tell people I'm moving to Barbados. Yeah, I'm moving to Barbados.
No, I didn't want you to say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, good morning, everyone. I'm going to be very brief because what comes behind me is just far more important besides one simple thing. These things are curated with the intent that the elected officials have support. When they're going to Austin, to Washington, or even downtown into the county, we're supposed to be that ecosystem to get the information and then also share it so that these rooms are full, the knowledge is there, and then lastly, we do have people that vote. So in a challenge, September the 12th, meet me back here. We'll be back here with a couple of things in mind, and I'll just highlight two. One, we're going to talk about, in a healthcare space, Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is a growing disease that we could do some things to improve our outcomes, improve our health conditions for not just ourselves, but our families, because we're not dealing with Alzheimer's, we're going to deal with dementia, we're going to deal with some other things. So it's better to know it early so we can be better at it. And that's coming through Representative Tony Rose's office, through Mr. Eric Wilson and Mr. Ben Brown here at the back. We're going to talk about probates. Because a lot of people have property, they have resources, and they have things that they don't know what to do when that moment hits. And they're wrangled in court. They're wrangled in the processes. And so these are the conversations that the senator spoke of, that number one, we're going to deal with it in a deep dive like today, but then there should be a series that follows it. Because if the conversation ever stops, then the knowledge ceases. But lastly, we want to target young to old. Because if we know it, but they don't, that's the bigger problem. So today at that moment, I yield to make certain that we have a lot of time to dive deep into what we do. These things are free. We're not asking anyone to give anything other than corporations and businesses to love what we're doing and also make an investment into it. But the citizens for now, I say for now, we want them to fill the room and get knowledge. So look forward to more. We'll be emailing everyone on the list. Invite someone with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West. Appreciate you. Thanks for.
We will be talking about
We're going to talk later, too. Just dropped the bomb on me. All right. Before we get started officially and I introduce you to our speaker, I am a college professor and I have a PowerPoint presentation. I would like to provide just some data of people who registered for this particular event so that we can set the stage on our discussion. Out of the registered guests that registered, 10 are business owners, 4 people are returning AALI attendees, and 17 organizations are represented. We have people that's in executive leadership, community members, and business owners. And those sectors include real estate and development, legal and professional services, marketing and media, higher ed. You see all of those things. What does this signify? This signifies a portion of an ecosystem that can be nurtured and enhanced with the right tools, right? You see people in spaces at various levels that can provide economic activity to the Dallas area. A lot of you all, the choices I had a couple of choices that you all wanted to, topics you all wanted to cover. And it was fairly even a distribution of wanting to understand the symbolic versus real access of freedom and economics, right? We don't just want to celebrate Black History Month as a, yay, this is another thing for us to celebrate. We want to actually be active. We want it to be something that's worth acknowledging, not just in our community, but for the community abroad, for the global ecosystem. And identifying its importance and relevance, particularly in an environment that is fighting against that. Also, people want to understand owning the glass, how to build collective wealth, tools of how we can create infrastructural trust amongst each other so that we can grow exponentially. And then policy reform, the legislative side, is very important, as you need to have the right policies to be able to create the right businesses, as politics and business go hand in hand. You all found us through various ways. We appreciate that. That shows that either through community, word of mouth, through newsletter, or the new social media space, you all are engaging with us. So thank you for that. And some of the things that you all said, I'm gonna shout out Nicholas Hawkins, because he's here and he is someone who is he's doing a lot of work in the Urban League, DFW Urban League Young Professionals space. Is how can a young professional enter in a workforce position themselves to lead and shape policy that benefits the community? That's important because I'm looking at the demographics of people in there, college students, graduate students, people who are our future. The next 30, 40, 50 years are on your shoulders. And so that's solid. Nick, appreciate that question. I want us to be able to address that. This is also providing the tone. This is aligned with the pre-discussion work that our key speaker and I discussed earlier this week. So 3 questions on the table today. Now I want you all to think about is moving beyond symbolic celebration toward true economic independence. How does that look? To you, to us as a community, and potentially as we go and influence Black Texans throughout the state, how can we make that as we go into the next legislative session? Number 2, how are we going to either own the glass, shatter it, or create opportunities for businesses to be able to be successful? Solo entrepreneurship is a very interesting thing, particularly in this environment and in our community. We are masters of that with no residual economic impact. So we need to find some way to solve and remedy that. And third, how can we change and create national policy reform for business growth? Texas is in the front lines of all of the national happenings here. Normally, I know in college, I'm in a fraternity, and during a regional convention or a national convention, I know other fraternities probably have this and have this leverage. We have a lot of members, and typically, if you want to be elected, you have to go through the Texas delegation in order to be something in a regional or a national office, right? And so with that, if that's from a college and a graduate fraternity, and they still live in the state of Texas, that must mean we have some type of potential for the Black population to have some type of stake if we activate the 2 million registered voters. So let's think of how we can creatively change the mindset nationally so that we can tell our support in our other states, and then we can apply it here in Texas coming in 2027. Several thoughts. Our past events, our first was our blueprints and breakthroughs celebrating Black women in real estate, which we had at Cedar Valley College. That built to the Southern Surge, showing 5 other real estate developers and what they are developing locally. And those 2 events will allow us to come today. Today is something that I really wanted more than the other 2 events, primarily because we're in a need of community building. And in order to build community, we need to have a voice who can connect multiple demographics within Blackness. And I felt having someone who is local, who serves at a national space for Black businesses, is paramount for this discussion. And so I don't have a formalized bio to read for you. Sorry, Charles. But what I will say is that this is a bad dude. You don't want to cross him. You don't want to be on the wrong side of him in terms of advocating for community, Black business, and freedom. Charles O'Neill.
Thanks, man. Good morning. Still morning. Good morning. I don't know if I'm going to need this. Can y'all hear me pretty good? Like this? I need this. Okay, I got you. Okay. One, thank you all for your attendance from Central West. Always good to see you. Brother West, always. And Matt, thank you for this opportunity. Seeing some old friends here that I had not seen in a while. I tell folk, this is not a cosmetic gray beard. It's a real gray beard. I've been around here a long time. In fact, at the West, you made me think about the 7-Eleven. Right next door to him was Master Bowie's Barbershop, right?
Exactly right.
There is some evidence of Black economic development activity. Just across the street, College Park was developed by J.H. Glenn, a real estate developer here in the late 50s, early 60s, just as Bishop College was moving to Dallas. Before I go into my appointing job, I want to offer you one quote. And it's, if you've heard me speak in the last 12, 15 years, you've heard it before. But it has become something of a mantra, a kind of guidepost for me as we try to work our way through to some real viable economic solutions for Black folk. And this is a quote that I found in a book by Harold Cruz, most known for his book, The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual. But in his book, Rebellion or Revolution, way down deep in the middle of this book is this quote. While it is true that ideologies move men, it is economics that feeds, clothes, and shelters them. If these ideologies are not understood in terms of economics, they're not understood at all. So we can't get sidetracked by partisan issues when our goal is economic freedom. We can get diluted into democratic, socialist, or Republican, or whatever it is. But in the meantime, food, clothing, and a roof over our heads is the most critical thing about the intent of economic activity. Real quickly, I have been in the business of business since I had a big fro. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years in the Black newspaper business, and most of that here in Dallas. And that kind of was the springboard into this burning thing I have about us solving this trenchant issue that appears not to be solvable. I did something I call a non-scientific survey about how money flowed or failed to flow in our communities, and we find that the regulatory environment and social contract have stifled any real entry points or blocked any real entry points that Black folk might utilize to really start building this solid economic foundation. In the meantime, we've been bamboozled into, and y'all, one side note is I do cuss a lot. My dad would say, I don't cuss to be profane, I cuss for emphasis. And so if I get caught slipping out here, y'all please excuse me, but we got bamboozled into believing that economic activity is the same as economic development. So we can look out across our communities and we can see signs of economic activity. But if we just took the words, I like words, economic development would seem to indicate that this economic activity would lead to some positive benefit in the communities that serve. What we have most often in our communities are what I call capital export portals. So they'll plop down some business that we decided we need to have a new kind of hamburger or a new kind of chicken. Go spend our money, and that money leaves on our community. We might get 3 jobs out of it, shift work, something like that. But the money does not return to the community. So the goal of economic activity is to leave that community enriched, to improve the quality of life in the communities in which that activity takes place. Again, the bars to that kind of positive benefit to economic development, oftentimes in our case, Central West knows this very well, better than most of us, is the regulatory environment entry into that activity is race-based, practice-based, programmatic-based, policy-based, and those are the kinds of things that we have to serve some kind of way to change us from this symbolic embrace of this Black Business Month, but to understand again that policy reform and creating a real blueprint for the kinds of outcomes that we need to have as a community means that we got to do something different. Couple of definitions. Most of y'all are familiar that we live and work in a market economy, a capitalist economy, right? Fundamental to capitalism is controlling the means of production. When I had my prescribed amount of Crown Royal, I said, black folk don't make nothing but noise. A community that has had an intimate relationship with cotton as we have, we can't make a pair of drawers. And so we have to begin to rethink, reorient ourselves about what it is we're attempting to do. We can't only be a community of merchants. We can't just sell stuff that other folk make if indeed we're trying to have a sound economic foundation. It's a difficult process because you've been blocked from entering that door. So economic development is the activities, a series of activities that, again, result in an improved economy. Two critical, absolutely necessary elements for sound economic development. Land and what else? Money. So this should remove all the questions you have about why our communities look like they look. Because we control land, but we don't have no money. Or we have no access to money, the kinds of money that typically are required for wholesale economic development activity, not economic activity, because we can open a barbershop. You know, we can open a little clothes store, but we can't open a factory. The other thing is, and this probably gets to why it's so critical that relationships like our representative government, our relationship with our representatives is critical. Another definition, politics is the science that determines who gets what, when, where, and how much. Y'all know how much that we get? If y'all didn't have a helicopter getting here, y'all drove over here, right? Did your car bump? Somebody made a decision about whether your streets should be smooth or if you could just live with a few potholes. Those are economic decisions made, and this is, again, back to our relationship with our representative government. These are decisions made with our money. Central West knows that, and actually in my job as a Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce, we work hard to ensure that Black businesses have some kind of opportunity at accessing state contracts. 40 years after Central West and other valiant souls in the Texas legislature working underhanded against odds, y'all know 16, 17 Black folk in the House, 150 member House, 2 Black senators out of 31. They ain't beating nobody with a vote. So unless we make a bunch of noise, we make their jobs difficult. So 40 years after creating a historically underutilized business program, the state of Texas somehow manages to spend about 1.5% of its purchases for goods and services with Black-owned businesses. far out of proportion to our presence in the population, about 15% of the state's population, and far, far out of proportion to what our contribution to the public treasury is. Everybody in the state of Texas is taxed at 8.125%. So we are invested in government that take our money and do what they want to with it. I told Governor Africa one time, I said, man, you governor like black folk don't exist. And you act like a schoolyard bully. Take my quarter every day. I've not been invited back. So again, all of this is a setup for us how we can, as a collective, understand what forces are legitimately arrayed against us. There are folk who are saying all that we have to do is practice personal responsibility and pull ourselves up by our shoeless bootstraps, and we'll be okay. That's not true. That's not factual, because, again, the regulatory environment that puts bar, redlining is real. It still exists no matter what anybody tells you. Or we wouldn't be having this conversation this morning. So, one of the things that we have done as an organization is attempt as best we can. There are 30 black chambers in the state of Texas, about 400,000 black-owned businesses, and folk that set themselves out as business owners. Not just in Texas, but nationally. Excuse me. About 96.5% of all black-owned businesses are sole proprietors. That means you didn't really start a business, you just made yourself a job, right? Real viable enterprises that are able to influence the tax base of a community and legitimately make demands on an economy require help. That is employees. And so what we've encouraged business owners to do is, and our conference this year is September 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Fort Worth, is the entire conference is focused on, the broad description is mergers and acquisition, but it is mostly just using our heads to understand that unless we can scale up to be truly competitive in a quote unquote global economy, a solo entrepreneur against a global economy loses every time. And so what we have to do as we reorient our thinking around business development activity, which should lead to economic development activity, is to look around and do what real smart people call an environmental scan and find businesses that are very closely allied to the kind of business you're in, and figure out if there's some functional activity that you can join together. I used to, when I was at the Dallas Black Chamber, folks say, I'm gonna start my business. Well, what are you gonna do? I don't know, I was thinking you could tell me. You got a lawyer? Oh, no, I ain't a lawyer. You got an accountant? No, so they weren't even serious about it in the first place, right? But if you cannot figure out, and this is the one that really stole me in the system, how you gonna make the cash register ring? I really don't like to talk to people. Well, go someplace else and get you a job. Because if you can't make the cash register ring, you're not in business anyway, right? But what we find are folk who offer themselves as business owners, and they're very good at perhaps identifying a market, have no facility for engaging with the public to encourage the sales transaction, right? And so again, our whole theme, Time to Get Real, at our annual conference is making us understand that working together is going to be the solution that gives us the fighting room against the global economy. And so, since you got to make it out, always good to see something. I mean, we just had a sidebar conversation about voting, and I think that's the last thing that I'll hit before Matt puts the hook on me. Policy reform. I do chair the board of the U.S. Black Chambers, Washington, D.C. based organization. We got 176 chambers in 42 states. So we spend a lot of time at the White House, a lot of time up here, not so much time at a Trump White House. And there are places in federal regulations that there is wiggle room that perhaps, if applied, we could really take advantage of as communities, right? But the red tape and the bars and blocks and challenges that are laid in front of us make accessing those kinds of opportunities more difficult. And when you get in a hostile policy environment, like we face now with anti-affirmative action, anti-DEI, anti-Black, that's the other side note I put for y'all. I work for Black folk, period, paragraph. I have no concern about what happens with white folk or Hispanics or nothing like that. I'm trying to figure out how Black folk can get a win in the marketplace, right? So that causes us to have to watch with a very different kind of eye. And again, I'm going to encourage you to reorient your thinking about how we solve this issue. There are very, very, very real, diabolical, animus-filled opposition to Black economic empowerment. Don't ever lose sight of the fact that there are people actively working to make sure that anything that we talk about today never happens.
Say it again, Charles.
That's ugly, ain't it?
Say that one more time.
That's ugly, man. I mean, wake up every day saying if Black folk get a win out of this, we gotta close that door. Y'all heard about the white boy that was over, that wrote pieces of Project 2025? That got his doctorate studying Black folk, right? That ain't hocus pocus. There is a Texas parallel to Project 2025. Some of you may have heard about an entity called Texas 2036. The border tape is innocuous, it's beautiful, amorphous. Just we're going to make sure that Texas flourishes at the time of its 200th anniversary from becoming the Republic of Texas. The subtext is because us white folk decided that by 2036, we will be without question, they are already, the numerical minority in this state. But by 2036, we will have ensured that we maintain control of all the economic activity in the state of Texas. That's harsh, ain't it? Watch this. Got Black people on the board. Woo. Signed up to help. It's ugly. I can't tell folks all the time, that's why I don't have no hair. Really, really, really diabolical is the word I keep using when trying to reconcile myself to what we face on a daily basis in activities designed to improve opportunities for Black folk. Financial institutions, Todd, that's where I first met Todd. He was running the bank down on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard with both hands tied behind his back. But he managed to survive. You know? But it's a difficult slog when banks say that you can come and deposit your money so we can lend it to somebody else, but you can't get any. I call Frisco Disneyland for white people. They just throw out something out there and feelings spring up, right? But you get on our side of the trip. I'll be finished, Matt, so we can come on up. But 1982, I was running the Dallas Post Tribune, and the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce came by the Post Tribune's office and said, we need a representative to serve on the City of Dallas Economic Development Advisory Board. Cool. I'm in, I'll do it. And at that time, the City of Dallas had outsourced its economic development activity to the White Folks Chamber, the downtown chamber, right? So our meetings were held at the offices of the downtown chamber. And they had a floor to ceiling map about that size of the City of Dallas with all their economic development targets, right? The bottom of the map was I-30. They had no interest in improving your life. One other quick story. While on that committee, that was when J.C. Penney was trying to figure out how to get out of New York City and had Dallas as one of its targets to relocate. And early stage leaders had very, very broad have-tos for what they wanted. They wanted an access to about 200,000 clerical grade employees, short travel time access to downtown, and a place to park their fleet of aircraft, corporate jets. Let's get them to move to the corner of 67 and Hampton. Well, you know they called me some choice, right? And they ended up in Plano. Now, Plano in 1984 was a sleepy little country farm town. Plano could not possibly outgun the City of Dallas in an economic development battle. But the idea that placing a giant international corporate entity where Black folk might benefit from it was so much anathema to them that they could go 40 miles away from here just to keep y'all from. But then they want you to come shop at J.C. Penney. And we did, and do, if they still in the business. Hope not. So, final thoughts is, if you don't believe anything I've ever said this morning, the one thing that I'm certain of, Black folk in economic development activity or economic activity, is we're pretty good at food, right? We can do barbecue, we can do all kinds of stuff with food, right? Everybody heard of Roscoe Chicken and Waffles? LA, right? Everybody heard about it. From sea to shining sea, right? Roscoe just opened his second unit in the last 10 years. Why? As much as we like fried chicken, a white cat with a goat cheese sell more chicken than us. Because we can't get money. Right? Two partners. Y'all familiar with two partners? When James and Fred started two partners, they were called Ponderosa. Right? Ponderosa, barbecue, and seafood. They had 3 stores. One down on Houston School Road and Loop 12. One up by Ledbetter and by Port Good Luck. Yeah, by Sunnyvale. And then a store in South Dallas. And at that time, there was a minor national chain called Ponderosa Barbecue. And they moved to Dallas and sued Fred Conrad and James Brown. And that's how Two Partners was born. Ain't that unfair? Folks used to tell me, man, we sure want us a Chili's over here in South Dallas. That's when I lived out back then. So you want Chili's? So you want two partners to go out of business? Oh no. I said, that's gonna happen. Because they can't compete. They can't even buy chicken at the same price. You know? So we gotta be very, very careful about those entities that we invite into our community. Exactly, I think sister that's on our board is U.S. Black Chamber. She runs the Nashville, Tennessee Black Chamber, and what they have utilized is what they call community benefit agreements. Say that you can't come into this community until you lay out the terms and conditions of your relationship with this community. That is employment, that is investment in whatever it is that is defined in that document. So we can't add that to our mix of our interactions with government. And that is both city, county, and state-wide level. So, and national, of course. So I think we're gonna sit down and talk for a minute. Just think. We gotta do something different. We can't keep doing this the same old way, because if we do, we get what? Same old way.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Let's give a round of applause. I want us to have a little discussion, a quick discussion. But before that, if you have not received a lunch or a drink, please feel free to do so. This is more of a brown bag type space. I just want to ask a couple of questions, and then I want to open it to you so that we can have a discussion, right? Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your words. You said a lot to unpack, and it could actually be a grad course in it. But I want to first ask about your role as chair of U.S. Black Chamber, and how the thought of idea exchange of other advocates across the country, how can being a part of that organization, how does that benefit the mindset of changing what's happening in the local marketplace?
Well, one, I think I saw something that you plagiarized, maybe perhaps unconsciously, the black print.
No, I use it as a reference.
Yes.
Because I use the USBC file to do that. So they're part of my data. So, yeah.
So the black print.
I'll make sure the chair doesn't, they don't sue me.
The black print is a document that we create on an annual basis, presented during Congressional Black Caucus week, that details the 5 or 6, most we've been through about 6 points of emphasis for improving economic activity, economic outcomes for Black America. And so what we find, of course, is really no secret sauce. You know, if you're between the Atlantic and the Pacific, you got a pretty good idea of what happens in Black communities, right? While there are outcroppings of what appear on the surface to be really, really, really solid economic activity in Atlanta, in New York City, in Detroit, in Chicago, some in LA. But those are outcroppings, you know, and so this broad kind of.
I don't mean to cut you off. You talked about like the global powers in regards to economic growth. I would just use talking about 2 pockets, so I'm just using the restaurant industry. And I'm a former restaurant owner myself, but I don't see a lot of involvement as far as the Chamber of Commerce aligning the community with, as far as the black owners in the restaurant, in regards to, we're not a union, we can't make them unionize. You know, we don't have a union, we don't have a black restaurant owners association that pours into costs. You know, the biggest failure that you see with a lot of black restaurants that open and close is the cost of goods.
Yeah.
Being able to partner with saying, hey, in case of chicken, you need X amount of chicken, it's gonna cost you this. But if we got a commercial building that's gonna freeze your inventory to keep storage and stuff like this, you get at a better cost. I don't see the alignment there, and I haven't seen any type of initiative coming from the Chamber of Commerce in regards to how do I get these pool of owners. And I say that I'm charging you to come to Chamber of
Well, that was a charge. I'm listening. It's a respectful charge. Yeah, I'm about to say, yeah.
I think I can.
Yeah, we received it.
absolutely
Yeah,
address
but
that.
I haven't seen. I seen Records Brothers that's trying with the last taste of Dallas State Awards. I think with the alignment of US Food and Cisco, things like that. But I haven't seen it in a path of how do we keep South of Dallas, Redbird, on back by even going towards Bonton Farm. How do I get all these owners in one room and say, hey, what is your needs? How do we keep you sustained? How do we keep you going? And what position and powers can you realign with you guys?
Okay, I have answered that question again for the last 35 years, right? If Black businesses are struggling, what would you assume to be true of an organization designed to support their activity? They don't have no money to support it, right?
Okay.
So I'm saying none of what you are questioning about the failure to deliver a programmatic response is just a function of being able to operate as an organization. Couple that with, and this is a selfish and certainly deal. If you don't have absolutely passion-driven leadership of local chamber organizations, you'll never get that kind of response. And so,
But when you talk about capital, we also got the banks that prey on the local restauranteurs who tell us, hey, come do business with us, and they still don't write the loans. They still don't guarantee the loans as far as from a Black business ownership. So we still can't guarantee them, but we still let you manage our payroll. We still let you to manage our bank account. Even when we exceed into the millions, we're still not underwriting to be a functional entity.
so you know that, right?
Yeah.
So what I just said, the last thing I said before I sat down,
Go ahead, repeat yourself. I apologize.
you got to stop doing it.
Okay.
You gotta do it different.
Man, I mean, this is the comfort I have in there's nothing new under the sun.
Mhm.
We have been real good at all the stuff that we need to do. It's just been decimated and attacked and under assault on a regular basis just because of the racial animus directed against our community. So if you can have a glowing recall of a Black Wall Street, you know that we've done this before.
And
Right.
the result of having a great Black Wall Street was a destruction, Tulsa 1921. So we're trying to identify systemic things that perpetrate that frustration within our community, inside and outside the organization.
So my other deal, my response was couched in this. If that organization is not doing what you need to do, join it and make it do it.
Thank you, sir. That was great. I had a quick response, but I was going to actually tell you, I was going to say join it as well, because the beautiful thing about organizations, the reason why we are here today is so that we can be on one accord and find a strategy to build Black economics. It may not be through the Dallas Black Chamber. It may be through a banking alternative who's probably at your table right now that can possibly give you an alternative means of funding. It could be coming to Paul Quinn and creating an organization for businesses along Simpson Stewart so that y'all can create some advocacy group to have a voice. We are in the space, one, humbly, to not try to stand for any type of one organization, because quite frankly, all of ours have failed economically. If you look at the numbers, from academic or scholarly numbers to just walking outside the street, seeing the type of businesses, we are not winning those battles. So we have to find ways to recreate. And being in organizations and a structure that you can provide your individual talent to help the whole can also alter the culture of whatever organizations you're a part of. So if you're passionate and three more members become passionate with you, y'all can change that board and change the whole mode of that organization. So
Not good for it. And here's another deal. I got a whole nother deal I'll do on what I call aggregating shopping. If we all decided that when we left here today, each of us was going to contribute $100 a month to a pot, like 20 of us in here, $2,000 a month. End of the year, y'all do math. Y'all do math faster than me. How much you have? $2,500, right? $25,000, right? Well, Mr. Banker here will tell you that with a capital base of $25,000, you probably can get a 10 multiple, roughly. I mean, you know, so you might to be able to go and get a $250,000 loan because it looks like you could service the debt associated with that size loan. But the real test would be let it ride. Let's do it for another year. And so the comfort that other investment houses, private equity folks have is that they get to use other folks' money to forge their way into markets, forge their way into communities, and dominate economic activity in communities that look like ours, that our amassing capital can't ever gain enough traction to play defense against them. And so what we have to do is, again, this wholesale change in our thinking around how we achieve the goals that we want requires us to do something different. And that means that I got to trust Todd with my money and trust that he's going to make this good decisions with it. And then we have to get a goal, decide that this is what we're going to do with that money, that we're going to get this and do, and then just hold each other accountable to achieve that goal.
yes, ma'am.
So we did that at Zen Homes. We call it the Susu. And we did $1,000 a week for 6 months to get to 36,000. And we have other Susus, but it depends on the level at which you want to go. And the goal was to buy hard assets as well as for us to trade into the market because of liquidity, the need for liquidity.
I'm gonna give some real blue sky for y'all. And I do live on the edge, and I often find myself talking about stuff that folks think I'm crazy. I am not. It sounds great. I am not a proponent of us dumping more money into markets because we find ourselves in the shape we're in by the very corporations that we've given our money to. So we got to find out, and one of the goals that I've always had in this trek along this business development field is to create investment quality business. If you're going to send money to the New York Stock Exchange with reasonable expectations, you're going to get a 10-point, 15, 20-point return on your money, then I would rather tell Fred Conrad, I'm going to give you this money, but I need a 20-point return. Same thing. So we have regular conversations with the National Association of Investment Companies. That's the black breed of all the PE guys and all the public bond guys. And they, to my chagrin, they invest just like white folks. So they don't invest in black owned. And so we're really trying to reorient them on their thinking about it. Because one thing I learned early in life, 2 times 5 is 5 times 2 is the same thing. So you can invest smaller amounts and get the same return as you do doing the $2 million placement to do 10, $200,000 placement. Yes.
So as you talk about public bond money, just in this past election cycle, we saw about $7.8 billion authorized just within the Dallas-Fort Worth region alone. How do you, as in your role as chairman of the United States Black Chambers, I think the last time I looked at the number, it's about $500 billion in municipal debt authorized each year. How do we get Black businesses to be more integrated into that planning process? I built a website that showed voters where the money would go, but that was reactive. I got to spend some time with the deputy city manager out in Arlington, and he said, well, we plan our bonds 3 years in advance. So when it comes to getting on those bond review committees, when it comes to getting those commitments of procurement percentages, how are you equipping your local chambers and the businesses that are members to be able to go and argue for that money?
Well, our interactions with the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, I sublease a part of our office in Austin to TLBC, so we're in constant contact with local or with elected officials on the state level. We encourage, of course, our chamber leaders to watch very closely what happens at their city council, at their school board, at their county government. Like I said, if you don't know what's happening 3 years ago, you certainly won't know what's happening today, right? That's a tough deal. We were on our call on this past Monday, and a chamber leader in Abilene, Texas, was a former mayor of Abilene. I say former mayor because he got to be former when he started trying to redirect the spending to benefit his community. So it's not an easy deal. Last right before Biden got out, we were there. The Department of Treasury does an allocation called State Small Business Credit Initiative, right? And the state of Texas allocation from the Treasury was $872 billion, right? And it's domiciled in the Governor's Office of Small Business. And it's just like most big federal grants. It's a programmatic release of funds. But the state of Texas, maniacal, diabolical, decided that they would only put forth a plan for $150 billion. $1 million, I'm sorry, because we're almost $1 billion is this year. $872 million, I'm sorry. $150 million program they put forward, and then parked the money in two little country white banks. And I'm in discussion with officials in Treasury in D.C., and I'm like, say, man, can't y'all do something? They're like, no. Yeah, I know you're having a tough time down there. Well, yeah. But we just keep plugging. But the thing again, that's a great question, but it underscores how critical it is that we stay involved. And if your elected officials ain't getting the job done, man, dang. If your neighbors ain't voting, that's even worse. And I'm not saying vote on a partisan deal. I don't know nothing about that. But if we understand again that the relationship between our economic viability is our political involvement. If we understand that, just because they're using our money to do everything out there. So if we're not voting, then we saying we don't care what they do with my money. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that remark. My only addition would be providing, especially with leadership, community-based leadership inside municipal spaces, is a challenge that we have. We don't have Black people who care about, or brown people who care about their communities that are representing a board or a commission that's at their city level or at the county level, or even at the state level. They're appointed officials. And it's not for the recognition. In the position that you're in, the position that I'm in as a Black male resident in Oak Cliff, being an appointed official is different than my counterpart who lives in Preston Hollow, who owns several businesses. We have a different lens, but also we have access to the same policy information that we can take back to our communities. one solution that we need to do is have more civic-minded local people gather and be able to be a part of that system. This system is set up for you all not to do that, particularly if you're a working class and you have, responsibilities either at home or elsewhere, right? These are non-paid spaces, but provide so many access to people and influencers that you can report back to your community to position you and your money to be in a better space. And that's actually what this discussion is for. We don't have any answers here. There's from a Black lens, our solutions are not satisfactory for what we need for the current economic and future economic system. We need to find new solutions and we need to work together. Stop it.
I'm 47 years old. I've been in real estate for about 25 years, and real estate development and finance. And I'm half Black, half Mexican. I've seen both worlds clearly. And I don't want to come off devil's advocate. Maybe we're looking for someone else to help us. Like, I need the government to help. They don't want to help. We're looking for the city help. They don't want to help. Stop trying to get them to help you. I need the white man to do this for me so I can get somewhere. You don't need this white man. You do what you don't. My life changed when I was always told, go to the bank, you can get a loan, go to school, get your education, keep your credit good. That's all BS when it comes to business. Because you go to a Bank of America, Chase, try to get a loan for $300,000. You can have $300,000 in the bank, and they still won't give you $300,000. Right. And you can have a home with them with $1 million equity in it. They still won't give you $200,000, and they just won't do it for you. But you have to find private equity. So I found a private equity company. Actually, they came to me because of my experience. I helped establish this white private equity. We started with $1 million from his father-in-law. He guinea pigged with me. I showed him how to do the contracts title. We got flips going. Then we got builds going. I went back to this white man for money to help me with land bank builds. He told me, no. I said, I told you before that I was going to build spec homes, $1 million plus. But I was also going after land bank to help the community for affordable home building. And I'm going to come back to the fund, and we're going to use that capital, that money, to build in South Dallas as well. You lend money in South Dallas to gentrify it, but now we're going to do it from another angle and help the community at the same time. Oh, yeah, we're good with that. Well, I'll come back to him and say, no, we're not lending to you no more. So redlining is still real. He used the money to make money off of to get to a point, but now he turned his back on South Dallas and won't lend on it. I'm like, I'm coming for maybe 10 houses. I may get $1 million loan across 5 houses. He would not do it. He goes, I'm only doing Preston Hollow with Midway Hollow at University and HP. I'm like, that is dirty work. You used me to get there. But it changed my life. It showed me when it was good with him, I can still go to him and get money. All I need to do is say, hey, I got a build I want to do on Preston Hollow, and I need 1.5 or 3.5 million, 2.5 million to do that build. We're going to resell for 5.5. All right, just send me the contract. We're done. Have a nice day. But we generally, if Black people can't get their own private equity groups, and we have enough collective money and power and athletes and everything else to try to get a large private equity firm. We only started with $1 million. This private equity's done $100 million in loans today in the last 10 years. From 1 million to 100 million. Just need to get that money there to get access to it. And it changed my life. Like, I can just ask for it real quick. Black people don't have that. We don't have a place where we can go. You go to a bank, you're getting denied. We don't have it until you get in that room. And then another thing on working sole proprietorship, LLCs or what have you. Yeah, we're our own business, right? But it's even smaller than that. We try to be our own person, period, business, period. I'm going to open a business, it's just me, no family members, no other help, just me. And you're not getting help from no one else around you. My Mexican side of the family and you open a business, your whole family's helping you. Your entire family is helping you, and they're getting put on. Like, we have 3 or 4 generational family businesses in our family. And it's just, you starting, their kids are out there. Even my workers, I have probably about 25 workers. I'll get to the job site and not like what I see from like an OSHA perspective, but their kids are there working. Their kids are in there working, picking up trash, trying to do stuff. I seen one little kid, he had to be 5 years old, trying to put a floor down. He looked cute. Oh, you're spending time with your dad. No, he's teaching his son a skill and bringing his family together. All these other races are pulling their funds together and then I say, I need the white man to do this. I need the government policy to change. No, get rid of that. They're not here to help you. They're not going to help you. They don't want to see you succeed. I'm fighting with the city of Dallas. They not trying to help me. And I'm like, I damn near wrote your program. And I get looked over on a $13 million contract for a company that got the contract, that doesn't know what they're doing with it. Who do they call? We need you to come fix it. We need you to come do the work for us. We need you to help us hire other people for it. Are you kidding me? Better yet, we need you to be at the conference at City Hall to present them as the winners. I'm like, are you kidding me? But we gotta work together. Like if you have a building company, your family gets involved to help you keep your costs down so you can get to good margins and then build your business so that you can hire them to do work and you're teaching them trades to do something else. And then fellow brothers and sisters in the room, I'm a builder. Do you do drywall? Do you do plumbing? Do you do this and that? And if they work together and create a community. The Mexicans, I'm at Builds, here they come with a food truck. I'm like, where did this food truck come from? Their community works together like that. I got your food, I got your lunch is here. I'm like, wow, they created their whole home thing. They got their fake Home Depots. They got their whole fake Home Depots, their own Home Depots. They go to. They don't go to the white man's Home Depot. They go to their own, way cheaper prices. They create their own economy. They didn't go to no white man and say, I need you to put a Home Depot in South Dallas so we can have one. They created one.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with anything you said. Let me add this to it. Non-scientific. George Washington was fighting the British, right? And his army was starving. So he let a contract to buy some cows from a farmer. And he let another contract to build a road to get the cows to his troops. American Airlines started by delivering mail. AT&T started by providing telephonic services to the federal government to wire up military installations and federal government office buildings. I'm saying the government is doing that shit with our money. I can't sleep when I think about what white folks do with my money that I wouldn't do with it myself. So I'm saying, yes, I don't disagree at all with anything you said, but we have paid and paid and paid and paid and paid, and one of the principles of good, sound business is ROI.
And we need you to fight that.
That's what I do, brother. That's what I'm talking about, man. I'm saying, y'all, just reorient your thinking, man. We gonna win. This is the comfort I have. Black folk gonna win, ain't no question in my mind. We're gonna take some more body blows, right? But we gonna win because we right. We right, but we can't go in there believing that, oh man, I think that cat over there, he's pretty nice. Ain't no nice ones on the other side of the table. Sun Tzu says, know your enemy. And I'm not saying white folk mad and bad and all that kind of stuff, but that's the other thing. I said, man, if you can watch me getting kicked, and you just say, well, if you getting kicked, then you're not my friend. You're not an ally. And so that's my deal on why we must make, President Douglas said it, power concedes nothing without a demand, not a nice, polite ask. Because, you can't do that to me anymore. And so if we can't empower Senator West and elected representative and those others that are ostensibly working for our interests and give them enough juice to I don't need you to go in there and be trying to be nice. I need you to go in there and talk crazy. Work sometimes. Doesn't work all the time. And sometimes it works too well. And Mickey Leland flies it to the side of a mountain. Joe Lockridge, y'all ever heard of Joe Lockridge? Joe Lockridge was the first black state representative from Dallas County. And he was bad brother. They dropped the whole airplane because of Joe Lockridge. Braniff Airlines flight from Austin to Dallas did not make it to Dallas because Joe Lockridge was on the plane. They'll never put that in your history book. But he was the first black representative from North Texas, man. Bad brother. So what I'm all that to say is know who's on the other side of the table and know what our goal is. And our goal is to get a return on our taxpayer investment. They owe us a return. We shouldn't have bumpy streets. We shouldn't have failing schools. We shouldn't have, think about this. White folks coined a term and we just adopt it. They say food desert like they're naturally occurring phenomenon. You know, so man, so I'll be finished. We're better than that. We're smarter than that. We've watched them for centuries now. We know what they are intent on accomplishing. And so we just got to put the reverse spin on it.
But we can't help it. The communities can't help that narrative. For food desert purchasing, they don't want to put big boxes here because of theft, crime.
Oh, man.
We have to stop that. The community as the fabric has to change. The community as the fabric has to change. Big box doesn't want to come here. They're going to test it over here on 35 with the Target coming up, and everybody's in the comments. They're going to rob. You're going to be closed down in about 2-3 years. Yada yada. So we have to try to
Get off the mic, Charles. My turn. You rocking over here, Don. I know my cues. But this discussion is important because this is what's projected out. That's not necessarily truth that's actually happening. Remember, the discussion is the economics of freedom, not the politics of freedom, not what we're used to hearing on TV, which is bickering. All of that's noise. In transactions, in the capitalistic market, anywhere on the globe, there has to be one, capital, two, a means for capital to flow. And that flow in this system initiated, as you said, with your experiences, started with the federal government creating the framework or the guidelines so that the water can flow. What we discuss in y'all's exchange and in our discussion is that south of 30, someone created a dam that was not intended to have that capital flow where there are black and brown communities, particularly flourishing pre-1990, when there was a significant land ownership, population, space that were comprised of black primarily and brown owners that could ramp up an economic ecosystem in the 90s, 2000s and on, but was intended to not have that design by that map that you heard from the 80s, which then we heard about food swamps or food deserts occurring in the 2000s. My whole goal today is all things that require money is requiring some thought from someone. And if we're not in those rooms, we are not free. So we need to find a way to be able to either advocate or be able to change policy so that our communities can flourish. So that was just my take on what I heard from them, because I started hearing a Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois discussion. That's another iteration, essentially. Are you going to either survive or are you going to either make change? And where are you in position to do so? So it's still relevant today. Yes, sir.
So I was looking at
Okay. I was looking at the second bullet point about building collective wealth. And as we sit here on the campus of Paul Quinn College, I'm especially thinking about the role of historically Black colleges, as well as the role of the Black faith tradition. I think they said in the next 5 years, we're going to see almost 100,000 Black churches close across America. And while Senator West mentioned making Paul Quinn a state institution, I currently attend a state institution that over the past 30 years has historically been underfunded by roughly $1 billion. So how do we build these like circular economies and community wealth building strategies of training up a child through the church, getting them into a higher education institution, and then giving them a job worth having that benefits their community? I was just talking with my good friend Desiree here about some of the job offers and my potential next steps, working at these asset managers and potentially going back into private equity. I would much rather work for the movement, but we all know what the movement can afford to pay a young professional fresh out of college. So how do we really cut down to the core of that and get our young professionals good paying jobs to help build up their community?
Well, the unfortunate reality is most of the framing for what we have grown to characterize as success are a standard developed by somebody else. Get a good job, go get a good education, get a good job, and you should be successful. Formulaic kind of approach. But, and I'm not attempting to hold myself out as a martyr of any kind, but I know that few of you would do what I do for what I get paid. And that's just because I just decided that folks say, well, man, why you do it? I said, well, it got to be done. And I'm not trying to hold myself out again as anything particularly unique, but we know that across the years that the folk who have managed somehow to supply enough energy to begin moving the needle did it without compensation. You know, and so if in fact I go to college and I determine that my next step should be a Maserati and a 3-story house, well, I've already X'd myself out of any benefit that I could possibly be to the people next to me, because I have determined that I'm going to put all of my earned money back into somebody else's economy. And so until and unless we reorder our thinking about what it is that is really required of me, that is us individually, to be responsible to ensure that Matt and his family are whole, and Todd is doing okay, and Bro Hawkins, you're doing okay. That is antithetical to white folks' capitalism, you know. And I'm not saying that capitalism is bad. I'm saying that capitalism as practiced against us is bad. You know, and we can develop a way for us to exchange goods and services to benefit all of us. But so it requires, again, a whole new way of thinking about the measures of success and what it is that would satisfy me. You know,
I can sit out in the backyard, man, and give me a push out the crown, and I'm good. You know, I don't need a mansion for that, right? And so again, we the trappings of success have been ingrained in us. I blame my frat brother Earl Graves. You know, everybody wanted to be on the cover of Black Enterprise. You know, and that, you know, you see these flashy pictures of, you know, folks doing good, but you never saw the backstory about the heartache, about the failure of my family to support me, about I lost a wife trying to build this business. You know, all you saw was the pretty pictures. That ain't real life, you know. So I don't doubt, again, that we're going to work our way through this deal. But it is, in fact, like Matt has said, that it is going to be conversations like this and connections between old heads and young brains that really synthesize what the real solution is going to be. You know, and I think the fact that it recognizes that collective wealth building, and I'll be finished with this. I always say, black folk just can't be in business for the same reason white folk in business. We just can't. You know, we got to be in business so that I can make sure that my community is improved. White folks can go in business so they can go climb the Himalayas. It's a whole different thing, man. And we're not connected at all with that. And the needs that we have as a people are not connected to that. So we don't need Maserati.
I want to go. I want to thank you for that. You reminded me of a lesson my father taught me in high school. It was reaffirmed by a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And then I observed and had choices to make my senior year at SMU. So in high school, my dad sat me down. We typically watch Cowboy games on Sundays after church in his office. And he told me I was starting to spend a lot of money. I got a car and I had a little job. I was working for the Mavericks and I was feeling myself. And so he sat me down to tell me the importance of consuming and earning and the short-term and long-term impacts of it. And he said, well, Matt, if you have $100,000, and I'm in high school, $100,000 might as well have been $1 billion to me at that time. What would you do with $100,000? All these things I'm consuming, not investing in anything. He said, all right. Well, if that's going to be that's called you're establishing your quality of life. If your quality of life is you're going to spend $100,000, you're going to start thinking. You're going to make decisions so that you can get to $100,000 to survive. If you do that, you have to pick certain lanes. You can't be no teacher. Because I know you love teaching. If you want to be a teacher, what's the salaries of a teacher? Ask $40,000. Well, you want to spend $100,000 a year, so you ask that out. Well, what if I'll go to law school? Okay, great. You like music? You like socializing, right? Do you want to do that during your college age? Yeah. Well, then you don't want to go to law school, son. Because in order to be a great lawyer, so that you can have this $100,000 expense that you haven't even considered bills, any of these things, you have to make $400,000 or $500,000 a year just to cover it. And so in that lesson, he taught me the choices I have to make in order to keep whatever money I have to stretch it. And the freedom, the more I have of my money to decide, the more freedom I have to make decisions. That was reaffirmed in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, when Robert Kiyosaki was describing his poor dad, which is actually his dad that was politically, he was a school superintendent, but he was in society the success story. And he was poor compared to his uneducated mentor who invested on the island of Hawaii and things of that nature. And he was talking about this warehouse that he paid $84,000 for. And was having the foresight to buy something for $84,000 so that in 5 years you can get something of $84,000 plus this asset compared to just buying this Porsche that you want. And so I was like, dang, man, my dad was kind of right. Okay? And so I'm an economics major. I graduated and I was offered a job opportunity. I interned at an investment company that offered me a job. The starting salary was $85,000. No, it was about 84 with some things. I had to take the Series 7, couple of finance tests, but that's fine. This is what I do. I picked out my Infiniti G35 coupe online. It was on the website. All that type of stuff. Ready. My business partner approached me and said, hey, we started this business plan 2 years ago. Do you want to be our first executive director and kind of expand it so that we can help kids all over the country? I said, oh man, that sounds cool. How much you want to pay me? Well, it's going to be about $25,000 this first year. I had a choice to make. Do I want to understand the formula for success? Because I'm at SMU for a reason. It's to get grades, network, degree, ROI, right? Investment company will be the path to the ROI. Being a tutor for $25,000 with an SMU education, inconsistent, right? But the long term, I took that job, invested, and we sold it in 2012 for a different factor, which gave me freedom to be YP president for 3 or 4 years because I didn't have the burden to work 80 hours every week just to have a quality of life. And so that super long story was just me venting to realize, hey, if we have discussions like this so that we can understand the choices we can make and how that impacts not only us individually, because we're good at that. We know how to self-survive. But in order for us as a community to survive economically, we have to get to that next step and figure out how to collectively create ecosystems so that the dollar can be recycled. And that takes hard choices that we will all inevitably have to make. Sorry about that. Thank you. Y'all saved me $200 on my therapy session. Are there any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
I think everybody heard the book Powernomics. Yeah, I think that offers some solutions to what we could be doing. I did want to back up what the gentleman said here. I stopped over on Copper Hill and Jefferson one day, and they were building a shopping strip. And I talked to the guy and said, "Oh man, you must be rich." I said, "This is real nice you're putting up here." He said, "Oh, it's just not me." He said, "I think he said like 6, 7, 8 of them that put their money together and they built it." Like he was saying, the whole family becomes involved. Also, Asian people do that too. I was told that like when they open a donut shop, they tell everybody, "We all going to this guy's for donuts until he can get established." So they do that too. There's one last thing I'm gonna say, but I'm sad now. But anyway, I did want to. I thought he gave a real good example on how things work. But that Powernomics, the group economic thing.
Dr. Claude Anderson.
Yeah, well, we've fallen off. We don't seem to. I know when I came to Dallas, when I got into real estate, I started at Galloway Herron. Mm-hmm. Mr. Galloway got older. Instead of Mr. Herron trying to start his own firm, he just joined in with Mr. Galloway. And so when I first, that's how I got into real estate. Everywhere I went, I saw Galloway Herron signs. I'm like, man, this guy's got a lock on certain parts of Dallas. So I'm going there. And I know other top agents started going there. Instead of going and starting their own firm, they just went to work at Galloway Herron. So I think that is a good option for us. Thank you.
Charles, any
Closing thoughts. I just gonna say Powernomics and just about anything about Claudius, but here's what's so crazy about all this conversation about our economic freedom. Everybody ain't gonna be in business, right? We need workers in every area of activity. We need education experts, healthcare experts. So I recommend The Blueprint of Power by Amos Wilson. It's a pedantic read. It's about that thick, but it covers everything about what we face as a community, from soup to nuts, organizational development, all the way through working our way through the current morass of regulations and how we end up with a sound, viable, stable, self-sustaining Black community.
So, but one, thank y'all for letting me vent a bit. The Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce annual conference is in Fort Worth, September 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The conference theme is "It's Time to Get Real." A take on, it ain't time for artificial intelligence. It's time for real intelligence. And again, our thematic thrust is to provide a framework for businesses to grow through scale. Either that's a merger activity or acquisition activity. We know that there is a phenomenon, again, white folks describe it as a silver tsunami. That is that retirement age white folks are leaving the marketplace and they're trying to offload their business enterprises And we have to position ourselves to take advantage of them. And think about this. If Texas is right now about 65, 67% non-white, and white folks are dying at a rate
that will diminish their population in Texas by this mythical 2036 deal that they have out there, imagining themselves to be practically non-existent at about 20% of the state's population. But we got the biggest state besides California, and it has to continue to work. And it has to continue to buy goods and services to work. And it has to have employees to work to deliver those goods and services. So that's the opportunity that we have in supporting our access to government. Because if it ain't nothing but black folk and brown folk in Texas, we don't want the freeways to be bumpy. We got to maintain, and then, so it's going to be incumbent upon us to become familiar enough with the operations, the levers of government, the operations of government, that is both municipal and county and state and federal, enough to, if we were left to our own devices, could we make it work? And the answer is, I don't know, but we got to. And so
that's the kind of approach to business development. I mean, we're again a statewide organization,
and by extension, the U.S. Black Chamber, we tend more to kind of 40,000 foot view on the issues rather than what makes you able to sell more T-shirts or more hamburgers. It's a little more, I won't say highbrow than that, but a more broad kind of a perspective on what makes for a good operating environment for Black-owned businesses. And so we hope to dispense that kind of information. So I encourage you to be there. We absolutely believe that you'll leave there with a freshened take on the possibilities that are available to us through an improved or reoriented thought about business development, particularly, but for the outcomes of a growing economic opportunity base. And so we're trying to position Black folk to make more money to build a better quality of life for the communities that we serve.
Charles, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending. Maurice, do you have any announcements? Yes, sir.
Okay, real quick. You will receive an email. Part of it will be surveyed, just because we want to make sure that these things have continued impact. Second, we're going to ask all of you to stay involved with us. I mean, you've been here consistently. Thank you. On Wednesday of next week, Mr. Ben Brown and his team on the housing side will kick off that probate conversation. It will be virtually, so please share with everyone the value and importance of that. Anyone that's in the real estate and housing, we want you to join that if you're in the eco-dev. Because I think that speaks to what you were saying and what you were asking. How do we grow? How do we improve our outcomes? First, work on this. Because if you got to go to work to pay bills, that's respectful. But how do you build your long term? We have to be in these rooms. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Matt. The greatest thing we do is back one another. And what he has curated, that's part 4 on September the 12th. Enjoy your afternoon.
Have a good one. Thank you.